Murdering black motorist. St. Louis, Reuters. A Missouri judge on Friday found a former St. Louis police officer not guilty of murder in the shooting death of a black man after a car chase in 2011, prosecutors said. Officials feared the verdict could set off violent protests, as have similar deadly cases involving police and minorities around the United States in recent years. Jason Stockley, 36, who is white, had been charged with first-degree murder, accused of intentionally killing Anthony Lamar Smith, 24, and planting a gun in his car. Stockley, who was arrested in May 2016, testified he acted in self-defense. Judge Timothy Wilson's highly anticipated ruling was announced Friday, more than 5 weeks after the bench trial ended. Prosecutor Kimberly Gardner said in a statement she was disappointed with the verdict and believed she had presented proof that Stockley intended to kill Smith. However, in this case it was the judge's duty to evaluate the evidence and deliver his findings, she said. That's how our system works. Killings of unarmed black people by U.S. police in recent years triggered widespread protests, and activists promised disruptive demonstrations if Stockley was acquitted. St. Louis and state officials were braced for violent protests and racial tensions like those that followed the 2014 fatal shooting by police of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown in Ferguson, near St. Louis. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens on Thursday put the National Guard on standby. Some schools called off classes and some events were postponed, according to local media. Christina Wilson, Smith's fiancée, pleaded at a news conference on Thursday evening for protesters to avoid violence if they demonstrate. The verdict in St. Louis follows high-profile mistrials or acquittals of police officers charged in shootings in Ohio and Minnesota this year. Authorities say Smith tried to flee from Stockley on December 20, 2011. During a pursuit, Stockley could be heard saying on an internal police car video that he was going to kill Smith, prosecutors said. Stockley, riding in the passenger seat of a patrol vehicle with his personal AK-47 in one hand and department-issued weapon in the other, shot at Smith's car, according to St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office spokeswoman Susan Ryan and charging documents. Stockley and his partner chased Smith at speeds exceeding 80 miles per hour, 129 kilometers per hour, the documents said. At Stockley's direction, the driver of the police car slammed into Smith's vehicle and they came to a stop. Stockley then approached Smith's car and shot him 5 times, court documents said. Stockley's lawyers said he fired in self-defense because he believed Smith was reaching for a gun, but prosecutors said the only gun recovered from the scene had only Stockley's DNA on it. Stockley, who maintained his innocence, waived his right to a jury trial, allowing the judge to decide. He left the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department in 2013, and additional evidence led to his arrest last year. Smith's family in 2013 settled a lawsuit filed against the city for $900,000, the family's lawyer, Albert Watkins, said.
On Friday, a Missouri judge has found a former St. Louis police officer not guilty of murder in the shooting death of a black man after a car chase in 2011. Jason Stockley had been charged with first-degree murder and was accused of intentionally killing Anthony Lamar Smith and planting a gun in his car. Officials feared the verdict would set off violent protests, as similar deadly cases involving police and minorities have in recent years. The verdict in St. Louis follows mistrials or acquittals of police officers.
This undated file photo provided by the St. Louis Police Department shows former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley, who is charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action in the December 2011 shooting death of Anthony Lamar Smith. A television station reported that a ruling is expected Friday, September 15, 2017, in Stockley's case, And Missouri Governor Eric Greitens has put the National Guard on standby in case unrest breaks out. St. Louis Police Department via AP file. A judge acquitted a white former St. Louis police officer of murder in the 2011 killing of a black drug suspect, a decision that could spark protests with National Guard troops on standby. Judge Timothy Wilson found the former officer, Jason Stockley, not guilty of first-degree murder in the fatal shooting of 24-year-old Anthony Lamar Smith. The bench ruling came more than a month after testimony concluded. Activists had threatened civil disobedience if Stockley was acquitted, and authorities took steps to deal with that scenario. All 3 downtown courthouses, including the federal courthouse and some city schools, were closed on Friday in anticipation of the verdict. The police department said officers would be working 12-hour shifts starting Friday, and Mayor Lyda Crewson said the State Highway Patrol and St. Louis County Police would provide support, with the patrol handling any protests on state highways. Republican Governor Eric Greitens, meanwhile, put the National Guard on standby in case of unrest. He and the mayor urged protesters to be peaceful, a sentiment echoed by Smith's fiancée, Christina Wilson. Here's our look at the case. The shooting. Stockley and his partner saw what appeared to be a drug transaction in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant on December 20, 2011. As the officers sought to corner Smith, he drove away. Stockley's defense attorney, Neil Bruntridger, said the officers were nearly run over. Stockley fired at the fleeing car, then a car chase began. Police dashcam video captured Stockley saying, "Going to kill this, expletive, don't you know it," in the midst of the chase. As Smith's car slowed, Stockley told his partner to slam the police SUV into it, and his partner did so. Stockley then got out of the SUV and fired 5 shots into Smith's car, killing him. Bruntridger said Stockley fired only after Smith refused commands to put up his hands and reached along the seat toward an area where a gun was found. But prosecutors said Stockley planted the gun. Testing found Stockley's DNA on the gun, but not Smith's. Different past. Stockley, now 36, graduated from a Catholic high school in nearby Belleville, Illinois, then went to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. After graduation, he served in Iraq, where he was injured and awarded the Army Bronze Star. Stockley joined the St. Louis Police Department in 2007. He resigned in 2013, about 2 years after the shooting, and moved to Houston. Smith had a 1-year-old daughter when he died. His family has not disclosed much about him. Court records show he had a criminal record that included convictions for unlawful possession of a firearm and drug distribution. At the time of the shooting, he was on probation for a theft charge related to a 2010 crime in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson. In 2013, the St. Louis Board of Police Commissioners reached a $900,000 settlement with Smith's family, ending a wrongful death lawsuit filed on behalf of Smith's daughter.